The Lost Teachings of Jesus, a journey beyond time. The old monastery stood at the edge of a forgotten village, nestled between towering cliffs and mist-covered forests. Its ancient stone walls whispered secrets of centuries past, bearing witness to prayers long since silenced. Few dared to approach, for it was said that within its sacred halls lay a hidden truth, one that could change everything. One evening, as the sun bled into the horizon, casting golden light upon the crumbling archways, a lone traveler arrived. His name was Elias, a historian obsessed with uncovering the lost teachings of Jesus. He had spent years chasing fragmented scriptures, deciphering cryptic texts, and following whispered rumors that led him here, to the doorstep of a forgotten faith. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of aged parchment and burning incense. A frail monk, cloaked in robes as old as the monastery itself, regarded Elias with knowing eyes. "You seek what was hidden," the monk murmured, leading him through dimly lit corridors, past walls adorned with faded frescoes of celestial visions. They stopped before an iron-bound door. "Beyond this lies knowledge the world has forsaken. But be warned, truth is a burden few can bear." With trembling hands, Elias pushed the door open. What lay inside would challenge everything he had ever known, not just about Jesus, but about faith, free will, and the nature of existence itself. Elias took a deep breath and stepped into the dimly lit chamber. The air inside was thick with dust, as if time itself had been preserved within these stone walls. Flickering candlelight illuminated the room, casting long shadows over rows of wooden shelves filled with ancient manuscripts. Scrolls bound in fragile leather rested beneath layers of forgotten history. At the center of the room stood a single pedestal, atop which lay a weathered book, its cover adorned with a symbol Elias did not recognize. The old monk stood beside him, watching in silence. His eyes, though weary, carried the weight of knowledge untold. Elias reached out, his fingers trembling as they brushed against the ancient text. The moment he touched it, a strange sensation washed over him, a feeling as if he had just awakened from a deep sleep. The pages, though aged and brittle, seemed to radiate warmth, as if the words inscribed within were still alive, waiting to be read once more. "Few have laid eyes upon this book." The monk spoke softly. "It contains words that were never recorded in the Gospels, you know. These are the teachings hidden from the world, teachings that could have changed the course of history." Elias's heart pounded in his chest. He had spent years searching for something like this, but now that he had found it, a part of him hesitated. What if the knowledge within was too profound, too challenging? He forced himself to push aside his doubts and gently opened the book. The first passage he read sent chills down his spine. "The kingdom of heaven is not in the sky, nor in the distant lands. It is within you, waiting to be remembered. You do not walk alone, for the divine speaks through the silence of your heart. Seek not outside, but within, for the temple of God is the soul of man." Elias's breath caught. These words resonated with a truth so profound that they seemed to bypass his mind and reach directly into his soul. He had read countless religious texts before, but this felt different, more personal, more direct. He turned to the monk, his voice barely above a whisper. "Why was this hidden?" The old man sighed, his gaze distant, "Because it threatened the power of those who wished to control faith. These teachings speak a direct communion with the divine, of personal enlightenment, and of a truth that cannot be confined to temples or dictated by men." If the world had embraced these words, the history of faith would have been written differently. Elias felt a shiver run down his spine. He thought of the wars waged in the name of religion, the countless divisions and conflicts born from interpretations of sacred texts. If people had been taught that the divine resided within them, that they did not need intermediaries to connect with God, how different would history have been? He continued reading. "To love is to know God, and to know God is to know yourself. Do not seek the divine in relics or rituals, for they are but reflections. Instead, open your heart, for the greatest temple is built not by hands, but by the love you carry within." Elias swallowed hard. He had spent his life searching for lost scriptures, chasing after physical evidence of faith. And yet, these words seemed to suggest that the truth was never meant to be found in books or ruins, but in the depths of one's own soul. Does this mean, he hesitated, that we never needed churches, doctrines, or sacred artifacts? The monk gave a knowing smile. Faith was always meant to be a path, not a prison. but men fear what they cannot control. So they built walls, created rules, and declared themselves gatekeepers of truth. These teachings remind us that no man owns the way to God. The path was always open. Elias sat back, overwhelmed by the weight of what he had just discovered. It was as if a veil had been lifted, revealing a truth too simple and too powerful for institutions to accept. He wondered, if these teachings had survived, would the world be different? Would people still fight over religion, still divide themselves into sects and denominations? As he pondered, the monk's voice broke the silence. There is more. Elias turned the page, his hands steady despite the storm raging in his mind. What else had been lost to time? What other truths had been buried beneath centuries of dogma? And more importantly, what would he do with this knowledge now that he had found it? Elias closed the book, his hands trembling, the weight of what he had just read pressed heavily upon his chest. He had spent years searching for truth, but now that he had found it, a new question arose. What was he supposed to do with it? The old monk watched him in silence, as if waiting for him to speak. This changes everything, Elias finally whispered. The monk nodded. Truth often does. Elias exhaled sharply. If these teachings had been known, if people had truly understood them. He shook his head, unable to finish the thought. The world would be a different place, the monk said, completing his sentence. But that is precisely why they were hidden. Elias furrowed his brow. But why? If Jesus himself spoke these words, why were they erased? The monk sighed, placing a frail hand on Elias's shoulder. Because power fears truth, my son. If people realized that they carried the divine within them, that they did not need priests, temples, or elaborate rituals to reach God, then the very foundations of religious authority would crumble. Elias stared at the flickering candlelight, his mind racing. He thought of the grand cathedrals, the hierarchies of religious institutions, the centuries of wars and divisions. Could it all have been a desperate attempt to control faith? The monk continued, do you know what is most dangerous about these teachings? Elias shook his head. They liberate the soul, the monk said. They remind us that heaven is not a place to be reached after death, but a state of being that can be found in this life. They tell us that love is the highest commandment, and that fear is the greatest illusion. Elias swallowed hard. He could already imagine the consequences of revealing these scriptures. They would be condemned as heresy. Religious authorities would deny their authenticity. Some might even go to great lengths to destroy them, just as they had been hidden centuries ago. He looked at the monk with uncertainty. Why are you showing this to me? Because the world is at a crossroads. The monk replied, and you must decide whether this truth will remain buried or be brought into the light. A sudden chill ran through Elias's spine. The weight of responsibility settled upon him like an anchor. Was he truly ready for this? That night, Elias lay awake in his small chamber, the ancient book resting on the wooden table beside him. He could not stop thinking about its words. The light of God is within you. It cannot be extinguished, nor can it be owned. It is eternal, as are you. To live in love is to live in truth, and to live in truth is to be free. He had spent years believing that enlightenment was something to be found, something external, something hidden in ancient texts or lost relics. But now, for the first time, he began to wonder, was it something that had always been inside him? A knock on the door pulled him from his thoughts. Come in, he called. The monk entered, carrying a small, sealed letter. You have a visitor, he said. Elias sat up, confused. At this hour? The monk nodded. He arrived urgently. He says he has traveled far to find you. Elias took the letter and broke the seal. Inside was a single line written in Latin. You are being watched. A cold dread crept into his stomach. The visitor was a tall man, his face partially hidden beneath the hood of his cloak. His voice was calm, but his eyes betrayed urgency. You are in danger, he said. Elias frowned. Who are you? My name does not matter. The man replied, but I know what you have found. Elias's breath caught in his throat. There are those who would prefer that knowledge remain forgotten. The man continued, and they are already aware of your discovery. Elias glanced at the monk, who remained silent, his expression unreadable. Then what should I do? Elias asked, his voice low. The man leaned in. You have two choices. You can keep this knowledge to yourself, live in peace, and let the world continue as it is. Or, he paused, you can share it, but if you do, know that you will be hunted. There are forces at work that do not wish for humanity to awaken. Elias felt his heart pounding. He had always believed himself to be a seeker of truth, but now that he had found it, he realized that truth came with a cost. "Why are you telling me this?" he asked. The man's lips curled into the faintest hint of a smile. "Because I too was once where you are now, and I made my choice." Elias narrowed his eyes. "And what happened?" The man took a slow breath. "I lost everything, my family, my name, my place in this world. But I gained something far greater, freedom." Elias stared at him, torn between fear and conviction. The man rose from his seat. "I will not tell you what to do. That choice is yours alone." He reached into his cloak and pulled out a small, silver emblem, a symbol identical to the one on the ancient book. "But if you do choose to share the truth, know this, you will not be alone." Elias took the emblem, his fingers tightening around it. And in that moment, he knew his life would never be the same again. Elias sat alone in the candlelit chamber, the silver emblem resting in his palm, the weight of his decision pressed against him like an invisible force. He had always thought that truth was something to be pursued relentlessly. But now he understood, truth was not merely something to be found, it was something to be carried. Something to be lived. His mind replayed the words of the hooded stranger. "You will not be alone." But was that enough? Was he willing to risk everything for the sake of knowledge that the world might never be ready to accept? He opened the ancient book once more, his eyes tracing the delicate script of the forgotten teachings. "You are the temple. The divine does not dwell in stone, nor in relics, nor in the words of men. It dwells in you. Do not seek it outside yourself, for you were never separate from it." Elias closed his eyes, breathing deeply. He had spent his life searching for enlightenment in distant places, in old texts, in the wisdom of others. But now, at the edge of revelation, he saw the truth. He had been looking outward when the answer had always been within. A sudden knock on the door jolted him back to reality. The monk entered, his face calm yet solemn. "They are coming," he said quietly. Elias's stomach clenched. "Who?" "The ones who want to silence this knowledge." The monk replied, "You must leave now." Elias hesitated. "And you? What will happen to you?" The monk smiled faintly. "I am an old man. My time is nearly done. But you still have a choice." The weight of those words struck deep. Elias stood, slipping the emblem into his cloak. He knew there was no turning back. As he exited the monastery, the cold night air wrapped around him like a shroud. In the distance, he could see the flickering torches of those who sought to bury the truth once more. He turned toward the mountains, where the stranger had promised allies awaited. He did not know what lay ahead, but he knew this: he would not run from the truth. He would carry it, and no matter the cost, he would ensure that it was never lost again. A journey of no return. The path through the mountains was treacherous. Snow blanketed the narrow trails, and the wind howled like unseen spirits whispering warnings. Every step Elias took felt like a struggle against nature itself. But he pressed on, his grip tightening around the small satchel that held the sacred book. Days turned into weeks as he traversed valleys and hidden paths, guided only by the words of the stranger and the faint glimmers of ancient knowledge pulling him forward. At times, he questioned whether this journey was real, whether he had truly uncovered something profound, or if he had been led astray by illusions of grandeur. One night, as he rested near the edge of a frozen river, he dreamt of the monk's voice. "The truth is not in the book, Elias. The book is only a vessel. The truth is in you." He awoke with a start. The fire had burned down to embers, casting eerie shadows against the icy walls of the ravine. He reached for the book, feeling its rough leather cover beneath his fingertips. Was it truly the words within that mattered? Or had the monk meant something more? At dawn, he reached the final peak. Below him, nestled in the heart of the valley, lay a hidden sanctuary, the place the stranger had told him about. Smoke curled from small chimneys, and figures moved between stone buildings. As Elias descended, a group of robed figures emerged from the shadows. Their leader, an elderly woman with piercing blue eyes, stepped forward. "We have been waiting for you, Elias." He hesitated. "You know who I am?" She nodded. "And we know what you carry." Elias's heart pounded. "Then you know what's coming." "Yes," she said simply, "and we are ready." As he followed them into the sanctuary, Elias realized that he had not simply uncovered lost teachings. He had become part of something far greater, a living testament to a truth that could not be erased. And for the first time, he understood. The journey was not about finding the lost words of Jesus. It was about becoming them.